Hello, I'm your host, Paul LaRoche, and this is Hidden Heritage. Join us now for Chapter 6 of the book, Hidden Heritage. Chapter titled, A Different Person. Subtitle, In an instant life changes and you come back a different person. Quote by Paul LaRoche. Interested in a tour of the res? Fritz asked after breakfast. Dressed in a brightly colored Western shirt and Levi's, he took one more swig of coffee. You bet I am, answered Paul. Let's go, bro. Fritz put on a jacket and black cowboy hat and waved his hand for the rest to follow. The four adults piled into Fritz's pickup and turned onto the highway towards town. Fritz lowered the speed as they came to a group of homes. This is West Brule, he explained. It started out as one little street of houses. Every year, there's a housing project, and they keep adding more and more. Now it's almost as big as Lower Brule. So how do people get their land? Paul inquired. Well, by going through the council. See, this is all tribal land, he said, motioning towards a large section of land. The highway followed the hill into town, offering a full view of the community below. You'll notice the streets don't run north and south or east and west, Fritz said. It's more of a wagon wheel layout. They continued down the hill and turned left onto a gravel road. Fritz pulled up near a circular arena with brightly painted bleachers in red, yellow, white, and black. This whole area right here is the center of activity come August. Why is that? Kathy asked. Rodeo grounds, powwow grounds, and softball diamond. This here is where we have the annual tribal fair and powwow. It's the second weekend of August every year. All the grounds around here will be full of campers. The little buildings are for the vendors. It's quite an exciting little weekend, Fritz said with a chuckle. He turned on a side street and drove through the heart of Lower Brule. They passed a small building with a sign reading, Friendship House, Sober Social Center. Paul noticed several small churches, Bible Baptist, St. Mary's Catholic, Assembly of God, and Holy Comforter Episcopal Church. All the houses were similar in size and structure. Some had plastic covering the windows. Some were boarded up and sprayed with graffiti. Broken furniture, old appliances, and even a few wrecked cars were strewn about in several yards. The shell of a burned-out house caught Kathy's eye. But on the same street there were several homes in excellent condition, lights warming the windows on a cloudy, cold afternoon. Here's the main part of town, Fritz explained. The post office, a bank, the squeaky door market. And right there, the casino. That was our old high school, he said, pointing to a 2-story brown building. Last year, when they legalized gambling, they turned it into a casino because we had already built a new high school just down the street. What's that building? Paul asked with interest. That's where all the offices are for the tribal council and social services, Fritz explained. Plus there's the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which is the federal branch, and the departments that take care of the land operations. The realty office oversees the trust tribal lands. Fritz drove slowly, taking his time as they turned down one street and then the next. In a matter of minutes, Paul and Kathy had pretty much seen the entire town. We can head out to the bend, and I'll show you where the Thompsons have their land and where I spent my years with Uncle Jiggs and Aunt Helen. Paul smiled. He loved seeing the community and area, poking along the gravel back roads. He couldn't wait to see it in the summer. That's called Little Bend up there. It's the river bottom on the inside of the bend. The Big Bend is the outer perimeter on the other side of the river. Hey, did you see how close the river was on that end? Fritz asked. Paul and Kathy nodded. It forms a big bend and comes back around and away it goes again. There's 3,500 acres up here in this little loop. If you look at a map, the river forms an S. It's a local people's term. They say, he's up in Big Bend. Then we know what he's talking about. Or, she's over in Little Bend. I don't think it's on any map, though. Just over that hill right there, Fritz continued, pointing south. The river is on the other side, maybe a quarter mile. That's how close it is right here. You'd never know it's over there. They call this area the Narrows, because the river is so close on both sides. Fascinated, Paul smiled and listened to his brother talk about the reservation. So this is how the people survived. Cattle ranching, farming, a few small businesses, government commodities. But what about the traditional ceremonies? How much of the true culture was actually still alive? On Sunday morning, Paul and Kathy packed their suitcases, knowing that their visit to Lower Brule was near an end. All 3 days had been an absolute joy, a temporary escape from the pressing world back home. An invisible heaviness settled on Paul's shoulders as he thought about going back to the Twin Cities. Kathy felt it too. "It's so peaceful here," she declared to Paul from the edge of the bed. "I know," Paul said, sitting down next to her. They were downstairs on Harley's bed, a room perfectly designed for a young boy who loved the outdoors. "They're all so giving. I can't get over it," Kathy said. "It's like I don't want to leave." "We don't have a choice," Paul moaned. "We'll come back. You can count on that." There was a tap at the door, and Kathy stood up to open it. Sherelle stepped into the room with Fritz close behind. "We're not ready for you guys to leave," she half cried. Paul and Kathy locked eyes and smiled. "We were sitting here saying the same thing. We were so looking forward to you coming. Everyone in town knew all about your visit," Sherelle said. Fritz chuckled and slid his fingers into his jean pockets, shrugging his shoulders. "I didn't tell you guys yesterday, but everyone at the squeaky door on Wednesday was just there to get a peek at you. They weren't really shopping." Paul let out a deep laugh. "I wondered about that, man. I felt like everyone was watching me." "Oh, yeah, they all wanted to see Fritz's brother. You're big news," Sherelle laughed. "That's so funny," Kathy said. "Oh, I think you should move out here," Sherelle insisted. Kathy didn't quite know how to respond. They loved everything about the visit, but live in Lower Brule? "Oh, we'd love to," she sighed. "But we have the kids in school and all that kind of stuff. Shane's only in 10th grade and Nicole's in 9th. Kathy certainly felt at home with Fritz and Sherelle, but she didn't know what the school system on a reservation was like. Maybe someday, after the kids were out of school, the family could relocate. Back in Eden Prairie, the days dragged. Paul and Kathy couldn't wait to tell all the doubters how incredible the trip had been. Now that they'd been to the reservation once, they couldn't get it out of their minds or hearts. Paul and Kathy both agreed it was important to contact St. Mary's Hospital and obtain copies of his birth certificate, adoption papers, and hospital records, just to be sure. "I spent my whole lunch hour making phone calls," Kathy said. "I found out that we have to get a judge to order the release of information from the hospital. We can't just go there and ask for it directly." "I suppose," Paul said. "So now what?" "Well, I've got it all arranged for next week. We have to stop at the Hughes County Courthouse in Pierre with your adoption papers and have a judge sign the release order. Then we take that to the hospital and they can release the records. I've already talked to both places, so they know we're coming." "Good," Paul said. "Thanks for doing all that, Kath." For me, I'd like to know your family's medical history in case there's something that affects you or the kids. Look at Arlene. She was only 50 years old when she died from malignant melanoma. I agree, Paul said, nodding. We won't be able to spend much time. I know, I can't take many days off of work right now anyway, so just a quick trip. Kathy wrapped her arms around Paul's neck and kissed him. But it'll be worth it. The following Friday, Paul and Kathy made the long drive back to South Dakota, this time directly to Pierre. It took only a few minutes for the judge to review the adoption papers and sign the release order. She turned around to a big file drawer and thumbed through the papers. Here's everything we have in his file, she said. We have a record of your husband's stay in the hospital from the time he was born until the day his adoptive parents took him home, she finished, spreading out the sheets. Kathy picked up the newborn record. Oh, Paul, look at this. She held it up for them both to read. This is wonderful. The log started at 3 a.m., listing all of the infant's care. The report read, Baby boy LaRoche. Date, 6/23/55. Time, 2:38 a.m. Sex, male. Baby boy, 9 pounds 3 ounces. Admitted to nursery from delivery room in apparently good condition. Crying. Routine caregiving. 7 a.m. Condition appears good. Routine a.m. care. Cord cleaned. The log continued for 11 full pages, with observations from the nurses on duty in 1955, denoting his round-the-clock care. There were columns for medicine, nourishment, and remarks along with date, time, pulse, temp, urine, and stool, with a varied range of notes and comments. Sleeping, good night, formula taken well. Awake and fussing, tub bath, resting quietly. Seen by Dr. Joe Harris. The last day's entry was July 30, 1955. 7 a.m. Good night. Formula taken well. The last day's entry was July 30th, 1955. 7 a.m. Good night. Formula taken well. Routine a.m. care with tub bath. Dr. Joe Harris in. Weight, 11 pounds 15 and a half ounces. Good day. 7 p.m. Discharged with foster parents. This is priceless, Kathy commented. The adoption must have taken a while. I think about 6 months, the woman advised. And here's the certificate of live birth, she said, sliding another paper over to Kathy and Paul. Paul picked up the certificate and held it so they could both view it together. Oh, look, Paul, she said, pointing. There's your name, with both parents' names listed. Child's name, Arlen Faye LaRoche. Father of child, Fred Daniel LaRoche, Indian, 44 years old. Birthplace, Reliant, South Dakota. Occupation, laborer. Mother of child, Bessie Arlene Thompson, Indian, 37 years old. Birthplace, Reliance, South Dakota. There it was in black and white, his birth name, right alongside his parents' names. Something about the officialness of the document cemented what before was a likelihood or possibility. The reality of the printed information hit Paul harder than he expected. He wasn't simply Paul Edward Summers from Worthington. He was a LaRoche. Ready or not, the transformation into a completely new line of ancestors was about to begin. He studied the document, handling it as if it were made of gold. This is interesting, Kathy noted. Where it asks how many other children are now living, she answered 2. How many children were born dead, she answered 1. She evidently lost another baby. And here's one more, the clerk said. It's the newborn admission form, but it has basically the same information. Thank you, Paul said. He smiled and scooped up the papers. Let's go make copies, he said to Kathy. I'd like to give one to Susie and Fritz. Not because we have to, I just want to. I think that'd be nice, she said. A few blocks from the hospital, they found an office supply store and made 3 sets of copies. One for each of Paul's new siblings and one for themselves. Following the emotional day, Paul and Kathy found a hotel to spend the night. The next morning, they stopped at Susie's to give her a copy before leaving Pier. They only had time for a short visit before continuing on to Lower Brule to make a brief stop at Fritz and Sherelle's. Once again, Mother Nature made driving treacherous across the prairie from South Dakota to Minneapolis. By the time they made the last turn into the apartment complex, both Paul and Kathy were mentally and physically drained. I'm beat, Paul said with a yawn. But I feel good about what we did. So do I, Kathy smiled.